In a research study on child/juvenile prostitution, it had concluded that the average age of most girls that get involved in prostitution are 14 years of age, and the median age of involvement is 15.5 years. Some other statistics include that child prostitutes are being picked up by the police at only 11 or 12 years of age, and even 9 years of age. Contrary to being manipulated into the sex trade, there is a second and apparently growing form of prostitution that is voluntary and involves the exchange of favors, like dope, money, or other presents. A study by Jessica Edwards of the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation found that an estimated 650,000 American teenagers exchanged sex for favors. Through the research, I have found that more boys were likely to sell themselves than girls, which is very interesting because most of the time society only hears about girls and women being prostitutes. Prostitution is legal in India, but the prostitution of a child, like any other country, is prohibited. There are as many as 400,000 minors who are involved in some type of prostitution in this country. Out of those 400,000 adolescents, 90% are considered to be sex servants. A sex servant is a form of enslavement which includes limitations on one's autonomy, freedom of movement, and power to decide matters relating to one's sexual activity. Indian girl prostitutes have the highest rate of sexually transmitted diseases, one of the numerous diseases being HIV/AIDS. Because of the numerous amount of girls becoming infected with HIV, the red light district, which would be Bombay, is basically ground zero and has led to the spread of HIV throughout the majority of the population. The prostitution of young girls in Africa is rising and becoming quite problematic for the country. This problematic situation is due to poverty and moving from rural to more urban areas of the country. Like India, Africa has one of the highest rates of HIV in the world. Young girls in general are particularly prone to HIV and they're prostituted at a young age. This is due to the lack of protection and lack of knowledge when it comes to having sexual relations. Not only are African girls at risk, but African boys were also part of the prostitution ring as well. The majority of the time, they are exploited by child molesters. Like Africa, poverty and the destruction of the Soviet Union's economic structure has led to juveniles in prostitution. Tens of thousands of girls have been forced into prostitution in this country. Different from all the other countries discussed, Russia actually has a school for prostitutes to attend. They have what's called a strip school, which many of the girls are trained in. After the girls are trained, they're shipped to other countries like Germany, Sweden, Singapore, and the United States. Once the girls are shipped to the other countries, they can earn up to $120 a night for a tour of 6 months in these countries. Out of all of their earnings, 15% goes back to the school. Based on this information gathered, the conclusion that can be made is that these schools in Russia are just a front for international organized prostitution. Lastly, like the United States, girls from Russia are promised a better life, high-paying jobs, or even marriages in exchange for them prostituting themselves. Uncovering the copious amount of juvenile prostitution in the United States and other countries across the world, the big question that comes into play is it even prostitution? I believe it's not prostitution at all, that it is sex trafficking, rape, and sex tourism wrapped up all in one under the term prostitution. Many of these children, which is what they should be considered, are forced into prostituting themselves in exchange for a better life, a better family, and to supposedly surround themselves with people who actually love them. This is all an allusion to the truth. Society is hurting these boys and girls by not getting them the help that they need. In other countries, prostitution is a way of life and considered to be less taboo in the United States, but it is still a rising epidemic that needs to be fixed.